May the words of my mouth and the meditations and reflections that go on in all of our hearts lead to this peace that passes all understanding. May it be so. When I came to Canadian Memorial almost 14 years ago now, hard to believe, I thought that peace was a no-brainer for this congregation. I mean, this whole sanctuary was built in memory of those who gave their lives in World War I. It's a noble mission, a torch that's worth carrying. And so when we came to name our new Center for Peace across the way that was just being built when I came, I was part of a contingency that promoted calling it the Center for Peace. And I don't regret the decision for a moment. It's filled every day with all kinds of groups that are in one way or another working for peace. We have Tai Chi groups, meditation groups, a group called Hakomi, who nurture loving presence. The David Suzuki Foundation has board meetings there from time to time. The British Columbia Association for Marriage and Family Therapy used to meet there regularly. 7 days a week, something's going on in there, including our own activities and our own groups and educational opportunities, which fit under this mandate to promote peace. So no, I don't regret the decision to name it the Center of Peace, but some of you will remember how controversial that was. There wasn't unanimous agreement for this because peace meant different things to different people. I was a little bit naive. I thought, well, you say peace, everyone knows what you mean by peace. I mean, we've been singing about peace here this morning and talking to the kids about peace. We all understand peace. Wrong. Some people heard the word peace when we were talking about it 14 years ago, and the image that came to mind was sort of hippies wearing bandanas and long flowing skirts and pretty much protesting everything that had anything to do with the establishment. Well, they didn't want to go down that road. Some thought, well, if we're going to be a peace center, is that an implicit dishonoring of those who gave their lives in war? See, they were going, well, I don't know about this. How do we honor peace and at the same time honor those who fought for peace? So it was complex. This peace that passes all understanding, we think we understand it, but we rarely do. I was flabbergasted by the resistance at the time. I am no longer flabbergasted because we need to become conscious of the various meanings that come to our minds when we all say the word peace. We have a vague sense, probably, some common assumptions that when we're talking about peace, it kind of means like a calmness, an inner calmness, an inner peace. Probably can agree on that. Or perhaps we could agree that peace means the absence of war, not conflict. But beyond that, it gets very fuzzy very quickly. And so today, I want to reflect more deeply on the various valid meanings of peace. Because when we don't understand that there are different meanings, these unconscious assumptions that we hold about peacemaking are often the source of conflict between various groups that say they're working for peace. They mean something way different than we mean. But if we're not aware of it, we just go forth thinking, man, I don't know, we're all working for peace. Why can't we get along? So, the other thing I want to say is that I wrote this sermon over 2 weeks, and it ended up, in effect, I had written 2 sermons. And as I was reading it to my wife Ann this morning, she said, dear, that's 2 sermons, not 1. So, what I'm going to do is preach one of the sermons, but as a bonus feature, for those of you who pick up the sermon, or go to the website, you'll get 2 sermons in 1. But I'm only going to do 1 for you this morning. So, I want to look at this from what we call an integral map of reality. Some of you are familiar with the term. American philosopher Ken Wilber came up with this map. And the first way to look at anything is through four quadrants, or four fundamental perspectives. And as I say, some of you may know this, but briefly, the four perspectives you can look at anything with is from the interior of ourselves, and this would be the inner peace that I was talking about. The exterior of the individual, and this is about behaviors and practices, tangible things that we do in the world. And then there's the inside of the collective, or the we space, cultures of shared meaning. And what peace means at this level is different from what peace means at the other levels I've talked about. And then there's the outside of the collective perspective, which is the meanings that emerge when peace is thought about through the social and political and economic systems. Okay, so those are four quadrants. Don't worry about them. Don't think you have to memorize these. In fact, let go of them, right? Just let go of them, because I'm going to walk through each one of those. And you can pick up the sermon and read it. Let's begin with peace from this latter perspective, the exterior of the collective. The social systems, the political and economic systems we are bedded in, which give rise to the popular saying, without justice, there is no peace. You've probably heard this. Last Sunday, for example, we celebrated Martin Luther King Sunday. And for Reverend King, of course, we know that peace was meaningless unless it included economic, political, educational justice for blacks, where there was full participation of the black population in all of our systems. So for him, he was all about transforming these systems that, in a way that would integrate the blacks in America and around the world, so that they would feel what Isaiah the prophet wrote about. Their name shall no longer be called forsaken, but rather their name shall be my delight is in them. And our systems will be structured so that they will experience this name change as being the delight of God. And if you've been around the United Church for a long time, this is a meaning that you will have integrated deeply, because this is a big part of what we're about in the United Church, is justice. When we think peacemaking, we think justice. So we've been working for gays and the integration of gays and lesbians and justice in developing nations for a long time. If you don't include this systemic dimension of peace, peace is trivialized because you inadvertently are part of perpetuating injustices and inequalities that are caused because the system itself is unjust. Doesn't matter how much meditation you do. You go to you sit 30 years on your mat. If we're not addressing the systemic dimension of justice, it's not a full understanding of peace. Let me help you here too. Let me actually share with you in our Bible study, Elizabeth Ward helped us to appreciate Haiti and peacemaking as it relates to Haiti through this systemic lens. And what Elizabeth said to us is, everyone's rushing in there to help out, but no one's thinking about, for example, the agricultural subsidies in the U.S. and in developing nations are such that the farmers in Haiti don't even bother growing crops anymore because they can't make a living. So what do? They migrate to already overpopulated cities. And where do they live? They live in houses in an earthquake zone where none of the architecture is built to withstand earthquakes because they're nobodies. They're invisible to the world. This is the way the system is structured. So when you start making the connection between this terrible tragedy in Haiti and the systemic injustice that contributed to the dimension of the tragedy because of this overcrowded cities and inadequate housing that's related to farm subsidies in the U.S. and the developing nations, you're talking about this quadrant that has to do with social and systemic, changing our social systems. Okay?